Hi, welcome to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl, and I'm in charge of the craft kits for the main library. This video is to accompany a craft kit that will be given out at the main library starting May 15th, 2022. But if you don't have the kit, you can still follow along at home. All of these techniques, this entire thing can be made with just a few simple supplies from your craft store or someplace like Walmart. So let's get started. In your kit, you should have a sheet of watercolor paper. Now this is a specialty paper that is used for doing watercolor paint techniques. You will have 4 colored markers, one of which will be a green. Now, if you do not have the kit and you're just following along to the video, you can use any kind of washable markers. They have to be washable to do the watercolor technique. You will have one Sharpie marker in black. Now, if you're buying this at home, do not use washable markers for the black. The black one, we need to have crisp lines, so we don't want it to be affected by the watercolor technique. So it has to be a permanent marker. You'll have one paintbrush and a paper towel. You will need to provide a little bit of water. So let's get started. When we first do this, we're going to put a larger flower, like say right around here. And then we're going to vary the size and position and colors of the flowers. We are going to use these 3 for the flowers. Don't use the green for your flowers. The green is going to be for your leaves, so set that aside. All right, so figure out what you want to be the biggest one. I'm going to just do it right here, and about 2/3 of the way up the paper, somewhere in the center, but you don't have to be exactly centered. You're going to do a little U shape and then finish it off with 2 bumps, and then you're going to fill it in. It doesn't have to be filled in completely, don't worry. That's plenty good enough. Now I'm going to take my water and my brush. I'm going to dip the brush in the water and get it wet but not too dripping. You don't want to be able to drip it off, but you want it to have a good amount of water. And I'm just going to lightly run it over where I've marked, and that will dissolve the ink and make it into a watercolor. Then I just lightly kind of bring it up and just lightly bring it up, get lighter and lighter as you come up there, and make it into kind of a little blob shape. And that's it for right now. Now we're going to rinse out the brush a little bit onto the paper towel. You always want to get the color out in between because you don't want to mix your colors. So I am also going to do 2 different kinds of flowers. The round kind and then some kind that are kind of wispy and kind of falling over. To do those, I think I'm going to do one right here. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to do a kind of a half of an oval shape like that. Then I'm just going to do kind of curved lines like that. Now I'm going to take the brush again, get a little bit of water there, and just kind of gently move it over. Now in this style of flower, you don't want it to be completely dissolved. You still want to see some of the lines, but you just want to soften them up. And you can go outside. Watercolor is not even and perfect on the edges, so you want to just kind of make it irregular. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to rinse my brush out again. What do I want to do now? You know what? I think I want to do another one of these, but smaller. And that one's tilted that way, so I'm going to tilt the other one this way. I'm going to do it down here. I'm going to do a small oval shape. Then do the curved lines. Like that, and do exactly the same thing as I did before. Just kind of run the brush very lightly, and I'm going to clean it out. I think I'm going to do another blue flower over here, but smaller. You want to vary the size and position of your flowers here. So I'm going to, and this one is tilted a little bit that way, so I'm going to tilt this one just a little bit that way. So I'm going to do a U shape, but tilted that way. Fill it in with 2 bumps, and then fill the shape in. Not completely, it doesn't need to be complete. I'm going to use my water again, gently brush the water over the shape, and then start bringing it up just a little bit, and a little bit to the side. Now, if it's too strong here and you want a more of a gradient, you can always wipe your brush off and get just a tiny bit more water and bring it up from here, and that will make it paler as you go up. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing with my orange color. I think I'm going to put one here, and kind of a small one down here. So I'm going to kind of, and I don't want it at the same level as this because that will make it too boxy. I'm going to put it up just a little bit into this direction. And I'm going to do U shape, 2 humps, fill it in, a little bit of water, and start bringing it up gently. I'm going to brush off my thing a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to do a smaller one, I think, down here. Stop now, and I'm going to do, I think, one more one up here, but make it kind of small. So I'm going to do a little U shape here. Now if I want to frame this, I don't want to go all the way to the edge, because if I want to frame this, the edge is going to be a little bit under the frame, so you don't want to go all the way to the edge with your flowers. And if you don't like the color, if there's not enough, you can always go back in here with the marker just a little bit and kind of add a little more color in spots, if you like, while it's still wet. Okay, this is where I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to let it completely dry. If it's taking too long to dry, you can hit it with a little bit of a hairdryer on warm to dry it out a little faster. And just set it aside for half an hour or so and let it dry. Okay. I've let it dry and it should be fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put stems on, and we're going to put leaves and a little bit of things to connect the stems to the flower. So we'll start with, I think, this big one, and I'm just going to kind of give it a gentle curve down to here. Now remember, I'm not going all the way to the bottom. I'm just going to stop about 1 inch above the bottom. Now I think I want to do the purple. Now with the purple, the flowers are hanging upside down. So you start from the top of the bell shape and give it a curve like this and down. Now this one, same thing, but I'm going to curve it into the stem so that it comes off the same stem. Start at the top of the bell shape, curve it around, up and around and down into the stem. I can do the same thing with this blue one here, but that comes off the bottom, and I'm just going to curve it down into this blue stem. Now for the pink one, you can cross the stems. It's okay. So I'm going to bring this down and over here, and I'm going to bring it behind the purple flower. So I'm going to stop before I get to the purple flower and continue on after the purple flower. That makes it look like that stem is behind the purple flower stem. So I'm going to do the same thing with this pink flower. It's tilted that way, so I'm going to tilt it this way. And this one I'm going to bring behind that blue flower. So I'm going to do this way, and I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to continue on like where the curve is down here, and I'm going to curve it into that one to make those two pink ones be on the same stem. Okay. All right, now we need to do something to join the stem into the flower. On these upside down bell ones, we're going to just take a little thing, and I'm going to curve it here. We're going to curve it here. And then we're going to do another one here, another one here, and one here. Now when we do that, then we're going to take from the bottom and just do a little curve up that way. Little curve up that way. These are curved the other way, so we're going to do a little curve up this way, a little curve that way, and a little curve that way. That's to form a little illusion of petals. I'm going to do the same thing for the small one. And you notice I am not following exactly along the edge of that color. Watercolor is kind of soft and flows outside the edges of the lines just a little bit. So I don't need to worry about following the exact edge of the purple or any of the other colors, just in the general vicinity. Down, do a few more. Now I'm going to take and flick them up from the bottom. Curve, curve, curve. Down and up, and up. All right, now on this purple flower, I'm going to have long leaves. So I'm going to take from the stem in some of the white area. I want something to fill in here, so I'm going to fill in a few leaves. So I'm going to make a long leaf on this one. So I'm going to just take and start at the stem and make a line. Then I'm going to start down there and kind of curve up to the top and curve up to the top. And they don't have to meet in the middle. That's perfectly fine. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. A little farther down. I'm going to curve a line and curve a line. And I've got my flowers for the purple one. All right, so I'm going to leave the purple one alone now, and I'm going to go to the blue and the pink. Now these are obviously the same type of flowers, so they'll have the same type of leaves. And on this one, now I need to connect the stems into the flower. So I'm going to do something similar to what I did here, but I'm going to change it up just a little bit. I'm going to do a little curve. I'm going to do a few curves like I did before, but just a few. I'm going to put a little tiny circle at the top. And then in between those, I'm going to put a little shorter curves and a little tiny circle. So you see how that ties the stem into the petals of the leaves? And now I'm going to do the same thing for all of the other blue and pink flowers. Okay, now you'll notice I didn't do the exact same amount of those lines on each flower. The smaller flowers had a little less, the bigger flowers had a little bit more. As long as you've got a decent amount and they're not crowding each other and they're at different levels. Putting things at different levels makes them more natural. It makes them less artificial looking and more suited to the watercolor technique. Okay, so now we're going to put leaves on these flowers, and I want to do a different one. Since this is a different kind of flower, I'm going to do a different leaf style. So on these, I'm going to do smaller leaves. I'm going to just do like this. Back and forth, back and forth. Now, if you want to, you can go through and put a little line in them. That's not necessary, but you can. And since I've started that, now I'm going to do it for all of them. And you want to alternate back and forth. I'm going to do the same thing for all of the pink and blue flowers. And your lines here don't have to be perfect. You'll notice my lines are not really perfect, exact lines. They don't have to be. Nature's not perfect. I'm going to do these here. Now this one, if I did that, I'll go over the flower, so I'm just going to go halfway and pretend it's going behind the flower. All right, so I have got all of the leaves finished. Now I'm going to color them in. This is why you have a green. You should have, you might not have this exact shade of green. There's lots of different shades of green in the pack. So you might have a lighter green, you might have a darker green. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the water back again and the brush, and I'm going to set these aside. All right, so I'm just going to do a little bit of green down the center. Now I'm going to do my water again. And kind of brush it around. And the different colors perform differently with this technique. So if it doesn't spread enough, while it's still wet, you can just go ahead and add in some of the green to kind of make it a little softer. And don't worry if you go outside the lines. Once again, watercolor, maybe a little bit of the color goes outside the lines. That's perfectly natural for a watercolor technique. Okay, so now I'm going to do that for each of these. And the water is just going to soften that up just a little bit so that it matches the rest of my flowers. You'll notice I am not coloring inside the lines. I'm not worrying about that. I'm just worrying about getting some color in there and then softening it up with the water. So there's my finished watercolor painting. That was a lot easier than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it? Now you can frame this, let this dry completely, and then frame it, put it in a frame, give it as a gift, and you can try this with any washable kids markers you've got and a Sharpie. Thanks for coming to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'll see you next time.